When you're reading a book, when should a chapter end? Uh, a lot of amateur authors can really struggle with this, and that's often because they don't know how long to make a scene and what a scene has to entail for it to be a complete scene, which is to say that it has to go through a series of beats, changing from one state to another, revealing information, having characters interact, and so on, progressing the plot. And sometimes they think of passages where they really loved the amount of flowery description and they just really wanted to indulge in a scene, a fight sequence, the beauty of the area that was just found or something. And that's how you can get people to write purple prose. Some conventional wisdom says to cut that all out and get your chapters short and to the point and progress the plot because that's how you keep people turning pages. And that is most noticeable in the suspense genre, which of course overlaps with action, mystery, horror, you name it. But when the tension is driven by pulling the reader through, you actually want to have really short chapters. And that also plays into the fact that when a reader is going through a book, they get a little hit of dopamine that they've accomplished something when they finish a chapter. But surely you wouldn't take that too far. You wouldn't be like James Patterson or his ghostwriter, who is using the Patterson brand in a completely stupid scheme that I don't think anyone should actually sign on to, where they're just fumbling through a suspense plot, trying to keep the reader guessing as clues get dribbled out between multiple different mysteries that apparently have nothing to do with each other. You wouldn't have two-page chapters, would you? How about an audiobook that's only 10 hours long, give or take, and has over 130 chapters? Over 130! There was a new chapter like every 30 seconds sometimes, because every single time a new perspective had to be given for like completely random characters. It would just jump off the main characters to, oh, here's another victim. Oh, here's the parents of another victim. Let me just give these perspectives. Let me jump into the murderer's perspective. Let me just jump around. And therefore, like, every page needs to be a new chapter because this book is allergic to the idea of a scene break or just putting enough content in one chapter to actually satisfy the reader that they've actually accomplished something when they read through a chapter. Now, there's other books, back reference, like Small Gods by Terry Pratchett is one of many books that just doesn't have chapter breaks, doesn't even have book breaks. You just read. It's just page after page after page after page. And when you go that far, you kind of get into this confusing point of where do you, the reader, stop? Because, I only had an hour to read, and I really want to get to a stopping point. I'm trying to find a stopping point. And that's what readers want chapter breaks for. But that brings me back to the conventional wisdom of how to write a suspense novel, which is to end chapters on cliffhangers. You put as many chapter breaks as possible, and you always end on a cliffhanger so to cause the person to read the next chapter, the next bite-sized piece. I swear to God, this book that I listened to, I'd hold it up. I got on Audible. I don't have a physical copy. This book was the literary equivalent of scrolling through TikTok. It was just one little bite, one little bite, one little bite, one little bite. You're not actually going to stop, are you? Except you definitely do stop because the book was just flat out terrible. I am specifically talking about the book The Fifth Horseman under the James Patterson brand, which I believe this was ghost written. I'd look it up, but I don't care. The book was terrible. I have no plans to read another Patterson book. I feel stupider for having read this, and I wish I knew who recommended it to me. I think it was someone I know here in real life. So they may see this video. I apologize I'm being mean about this, but the recommendation sucked. The book was stupid. When a detective is going after two cases at once, the cases are supposed to secretly overlap with each other, Not one gets resolved at the halfway mark, and then here's the other one to go towards the climax, and completely doesn't matter that the one serial killer was stopped and the other, maybe they won't get caught. It was absolute trash. Now, personally, I write chapters consistently that are at the 2,000 word mark. Now, to a non reader, that doesn't exactly make sense at all. Here is one of my books, Infinite Money Glitch. This is supposed to be a fast-paced comedy. You can see that it's, relatively, here's my hand for scale. It's a hand-sized book. And my chapters are often about 8 to 10 pages. And I recognize that that's short. That's because I want people to get through chapter after chapter after chapter, especially in a book based on video games. You get that little gamification of, oh, I am making progress to the end of the book, because I know that there are, how many chapters are in this one? 37 chapters. And every chapter I get through, I'm getting closer to the end of having completed the story. But even at that length, at 8 to 10 pages, I do get valid criticism of they're too short and insubstantial. Sometimes they feel like, especially when one chapter is in the same location as the next. It just has a different focus of content and its own little plot beat evolution. So going forward, you are probably good. If you follow my books, you'll notice that I'm going to be varying chapters size up more, or I'm still trying to hit the sweet spot. I'm not going to recommend anybody go the suspense route where some of these chapters are like a page long. It was ridiculous, and the book was terrible. When Audible is breaking it down into 8 parts, which are, like 40-minute recordings that you download, because that's how it's just parsing the data files. And the 8th part is starting at like chapter 90. Something has clearly gone wrong. Someone has gotten very carried away with, oh, this, shorter chapters must be good, therefore make them even shorter and you'll get even better. Clearly, I think that's just a wonderful example of one of the many failures of traditional publishing. They discover these things that seem like rules, and they seem like they'll lead to more success. So they just replicate the rule as they see it and blindly hammer on to its logical conclusion. I swear, you give it another 20 years, and you'll see books that the chapter titles are half the words in the book. It's like, recommend The Fifth Horseman by James Patterson. Uh, I'd give it a 3 out of 10, because I was able to read it, but it was just genuinely terrible, and I feel stupider for having read it. The fact that it is part of some women's murder mystery club recommendation just kind of insults that club. Sub to my channel if you want honest opinions about books and what books are worth reading and why. Follow me on Twitter. Consider supporting my literature. This is Infinite Money Glitch. It's a comedic heist set inside a video game based on the stock market shenanigans, and there's a lot to love in it if you know anything about, say, World of Warcraft and the auction house. Till then, cheers.